Recording in progress.
Crazy.
I forgot to write it on there. It's 0975.
1975?
Yeah.
Hold, please.
I should recuse myself on, just,
You should do that.
so that there's a record
Yeah.
of it. Yep.
All set.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the January 4th, 2023 Sutton Conservation Commission meeting. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Start our day.
I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I didn't mess up the date, but I can speak. Happy New Year. In person tonight, we have Vice Chair Mike McGovern, Robin Jakes, Jamie Marion, Tim Thompson, and myself, William Wentz. Unavailable tonight is Nicole Oben. In-person staff is Wanda Bean and Greg LaCroix, the consultant assistant. Pursuant to Governor Baker's February 15, 2022 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this meeting of the Sutton Conservation Commission is in a hybrid format with both in-person and Zoom components. To join the meeting, visit www.zoom.us/join and enter meeting ID 854-8463-4784 and passcode 407883. This meeting will be broadcast and recorded on local public access station Verizon 31 and Charter Spectrum 191 and live streamed on the town's YouTube channel when available. A recording of the meeting will be made available after proceedings on the town's website and YouTube channel. Welcome. The first thing up we have is, did I lose the agenda? 4648 Buttonwood Ave. It's a public hearing, a new notice of intent. In accordance with the provisions of MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, and the Sutton Bylaw 12, Wetlands Protection, the Conservation Commission will hold a hearing to review a notice of intent, NOI, submitted by Robert Raymond of Worcester, Mass. The hearing will be held on Wednesday, January 4th, 2023, at 6:30 p.m. The project consists of a single-family home with a driveway and site grading at 46-48 Buttonwood Ave.
Bill,
Good evening.
recuse myself.
Michael McGovern is recusing, and welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Rauf Mankaris with Alpha Omega Engineering. We are proposing a new house, driveway, and sewer connection in the buffer. I mean, the house itself is going to be outside the 200 feet of riverfront. Only section of the driveway and drainage and utilities are in the buffer zone. The site is mostly sand. We dug like few holes on the site and we about 15 feet just sand. We have a huge cut on the site, but we're doing a lot of stabilizations to control it. We have special conditions, construction sequence that has to be followed, like that no work has to be done on the house at all unless all the stabilization is done and the cuts or fills are done correctly. Other than that, there is nothing. We're doing an infiltration system to control the runoff from the driveway and the house. We believe that's going to work if it's done correctly. We're also creating a swale on the side of the road to direct the runoff to the existing 12-inch pipe under the under the road. DEP looked at it and they have no issues with the work.
Great overview. Greg, have you looked at this one?
I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First things first, I agree with the wetland delineation. I agree that there's no resource areas directly on the parcel that the proposed project is on. They are working within the 200-foot riverfront area, which means they have to stay less than 5,000 square feet or 10% of the riverfront area on the property, whichever is larger. They're staying within that 5,000 square feet, so they're in compliance with that part of 310 CMR 10.58. My biggest concerns with this project are the steepness of the slope and how close. I'm going to share. So this is the proposed project. You got Buttonwoods Ave on the left side of the parcel, the driveway coming up right here, going up the hill at an angle, and then coming out of the 200-foot riverfront area, which is right this line right here. So technically, all of this work is outside of commission jurisdiction. This is the infiltration system that will be handling a lot of the runoff from the impervious surfaces, including the driveway on the site. So that will be dealing with a lot of that stormwater runoff, which is good because the hill is very steep going down to the road, and then it's another very steep hill going down to Cold Spring Brook, which, as we know, is a designated cold water fishery by the Mass DCR. So it's extra protected. Now, this site doesn't need to meet stormwater performance standards because it is a single-family single-family house. So it doesn't need to meet those standards under 310 CMR, but under the bylaw, you have the right to request that it does. So going back to the steepness of the slope, right off the road, you're at about 100 elevation right here, maybe down to 98. At the top of the hill, you get up to 150. So just to give you an idea, and I have some pictures to show you as well. Just 1 second. All right. So this is the slope going down to Cold Spring Brook, which is west or to the left of the property. Just some more pictures of that slope. So I think this one, if it catches up. All right, not cooperating.
Is this the lot pretty much across from where the dam was removed?
It's close
Or
to
where
there,
the
but
dam's gonna be
close, yeah,
removed?
it's
it's
Okay.
not exactly, yeah, right.
There was an
behind
old structure across the street, a house that
Yes.
was removed.
Okay, yeah.
it.
What did he just say?
There used to be a house across
Oh,
the street,
yeah,
right on the road,
yeah.
a couple years
It-
ago. they
like the
took that.
Smith family.
Oh, yeah, yep. Good memory.
So I apologize, the pictures aren't downloading quite as quickly as I was hoping, but,
Technology.
here's one that shows pre-existing structure on the property, and it shows just how steep that hill is going up. That gives me a lot of concern, just because of how close we are to the river, and the slope is coming right down towards the river. The only other concern I had with the site plan was they have grading in the well going right to the 200-foot riverfront area. It looks good on paper, but sometimes it's difficult to actually accomplish that grading right to the 200-foot riverfront area. So I would just say, when and if construction's happening, just make sure that line is well staked, well marked, and
Yes.
that we're not encroaching at all into that 200-foot riverfront area. But besides that, I think they did their best to use the site in a way that would benefit the wetlands on the property, or off the property, as much as possible, and they are also infiltrating all stormwater, or most of the stormwater caused by the extra impervious surfaces. So I think they're doing the best with what they have here.
And if you see, we have an infiltration swale, and also the additional flow is gonna be catched in a catch basin. And also in the driveway itself, we're adding an eco drain, 12-inch eco drain, to catch any flows that run through the driveway. So everything will be collected and sent down to the infiltration system. And we're also restoring all this area with the old house and driveway. We're gonna be restored with a lot of trees around it.
Good. To the board.
My only concern is what's been expressed already is runoff, given the topography and the slope and we're dealing with Old Mill, the same situation, kind of. It's one of those lots that everyone can take a look at and say, it's probably gonna be a problem.
Yeah, it's a very difficult, I think it's gonna be a very difficult lot to work on because of that slope.
I think any site can be a problem if you don't execute it according to the design, the work. This one is different from Old Mill because it's mostly sand, dry. We dug like 15 feet deep, we have no water table, just sand. The other one, the water table is extremely high.
And yeah, I'll agree with that. I didn't see any wet or even moist areas on the hill on this property, all upland vegetation, which tells you that it is a drier lot.
And the house is so far back.
It's the edge of the gravel pit, too.
Yep.
So could we condition, did you say something, that you're gonna wait to do any development till all the erosion controls or everything are in, right? And inspected, signed
Yes.
off?
Yep.
And we could condition that, you know, the driveway and all that had to be in a certain level, so we don't have any issues, even though it is a drier lot?
It is on the plan, actually.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
What would be a certain level?
So what?
What would be the certain level? Like, is there like a level that it would need to be at to make that happen?
If,
Well,
if you read the special conditions on the plan, on page number 1, it's all listed down there.
you have, Greg, do you have those? Do you wanna
Yeah.
read the special conditions in?
Yeah, absolutely.
And while you're looking that up, to the audience, if you need to come up to the microphone and state your name and address though, please.
I do have it here, but
My name is James Giangregorio. I live on 30 Merrill Road. My property is against this property.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
he needs to speak in.
Oh, you actually have to sit down.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We're very fancy here with the audience.
I'm sorry.
My name's James Giangregorio. I live at 30 Merrill Road. My property abuts where they're thinking of putting a house in. But that's all ledge there. It's a steep hill. And they came and perked it a few times in different places, but anybody who walks up on that hill knows it's all ledge. I've lived there for 30 years. You know, so, and what I keep hearing is if it's done correctly. Well, what if it's not correctly? You know, now who's gonna live there? Me and the 3 to 5 houses this property's abutting?
So when we say done correctly, we have a similar, I shouldn't say similar build, but a property that's being built on a very steep hill, for
Yep.
lack of a better term. And we have checks and balances in place, so if something doesn't happen, we stop the construction to make sure it wouldn't be a problem for you or any other abutters. The issue I think we run into is when you get up towards your property, and Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, it might be out of our jurisdiction.
Because they're out of the wetlands protection part, so that goes out beyond
What's
us.
it gonna do with the water if it floats down the side of the rock that's all there underneath it? My yard has ledge.
Yeah.
There's ledge down there too. There's no, you know.
So if something were to flow into our, someone correct me
Oh, it's
if I'm
gonna
wrong.
go that way. It's not going to my property.
Yeah, so if it flows into our jurisdiction, it becomes our
purview.
Issue.
yeah, issue, problem, whatever you want to call it. But just where they're building for lack, or propose to build, lack of a better term, it's outside of what we have any say in. We have say pretty much all the way up the driveway in the frontage.
But where the house is actually going, we don't have a say.
Right.
Even if we wanted to have a say, we don't.
Well, you're concerned about conservation. Where's the water gonna wash to? It's all ledge. Right into the Blackstone down there, that river.
But for this point of where we're at right now,
Okay.
like there's no house there or anything for us to have a jurisdiction over. We can only speak on the things that
I'm
we.
trying to not to interrupt you.
I
I'm
know.
trying to prevent something before it happens.
Sure.
I have no problem. you know,
100%.
but I've lived there 30 years, and now, you know, we never even thought they could build there because,
Right.
you know, it's all ledge from there on, but all due respect.
That's fine.
Okay?
Right, but like, just in terms of like what the laws are, like, we only have, our feet are only in the waters of where we actually have a leg to stand in.
Okay. I said my piece.
No, and it is on the record, sir. Thank you
Okay.
for bringing it up.
All
And
right,
we,
then.
Yeah?
we work
Thank you.
closely with other boards, so we will make sure everyone's,
I appreciate it.
thank you. Have a good night.
One thing that was asked for with another property that was similar was, instead of straw wattle, maybe straw bale in order to, because of the steepness of the slope, in order to make those erosion controls that much stronger, and in case of potential fallout, it would do a better job of keeping the erosion out of the resource areas, so that could be considered at this site as well.
We're okay with that.
That's okay with that. So you, The conditions, do you mind reading those in?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Rauf, it's 1 through?
5.
1 through 5 here?
Yeah.
Okay. The contractor and all subcontractors are to be made aware of the order conditions as granted
It's,
by.
I'm sorry, the bottom ones.
Oh, okay.
The proposed
Oh,
order
bottom
proposed.
5. Got it, yeah.
The little writing ones.
A little stuff.
All right. Special construction sequence to be followed during construction. Proposed erosion controls to be installed prior to the start of construction. Construction entrance to be constructed as shown on the plan. Proposed infiltration system area to be dug out and used as a sedimentation basin during construction. Proposed driveway base layer, drainage swale, check dam, sediment forebay, and slope stabilization to be completed prior to the start of any work on the house. Any bare or disturbed areas that are disturbed for 30 days or more are to be temporarily or permanently stabilized.
So theoretically, if those were all done, they were done today, and we had an inch of rain tomorrow, that system should work to prevent any water from going onto any abutter's property or onto the street. Is that right?
It should prevent any erosions from happening.
Okay.
What about maybe adding a condition 6 that in the event that the erosion controls are to fail, that all site work activities will be ceased until they're corrected?
Sure, that's fine. It's
would
usually it's somewhere in the construction sequence, but that's fine, yeah.
Yeah.
It has to be.
And just a matter of clarification, when number 3 says proposed infiltration system area to be dug out and used as a sedimentation basin during construction.
Yes,
Will that be the first thing that's done after vegetation's cleared?
yes,
That
yeah.
will be the first thing,
Yes.
okay.
So the precast will be installed at a later time? You're going to dig the hole
Yes,
to?
yeah, we just will create it, we do it as a sediment basin right now during construction, and then after we cut the slope and everything, we'll do the infiltration system. Otherwise, it's gonna be full of silt.
Where you did your test pits?
Yes.
Was that in the,
In the back, around the house area,
And
trying
it's-
to see how much we can cut.
so in the area of where the house is going to be built?
Yes, and, yeah,
And it
different
showed-
location
And
around.
it showed sand? and-
Sand.
Yeah.
Anybody else from the board? Anybody on TV or anybody else from the audience? And you have a DEP number, is that
That's correct,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's actually good,
Yeah,
quicker than I thought you'd get one.
for sure.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
can you just ask the question one more time to the Zoom people, because somebody was just admitted into the meeting?
is there anyone on Zoom or watching from home that has any comments or would like to make a comment on 46-48 Buttonwood Ave?
No.
Okay,
I just,
thank you, good catch. Back to the board here.
So I would like to make a motion to close the public hearing on 4648 Buttonwood Ave.
I'll second.
Robin made a motion to close the public hearing on 46-48 Buttonwood Ave. Jamie seconded. Robin, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jamie, how do you vote?
Aye.
Tim, how do you vote? Aye. And I, Bill, vote aye.
I would like to make a motion to issue a order of conditions for 4648 Buttonwood Ave with the special conditions outlined in their proposal, including one that was proposed that in the event that those 5 do not prevent water runoff, that all work is stopped until it is corrected.
I'll second.
So Robin made a motion for order of conditions. Jamie seconded. Robin, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jamie, how do you vote?
Aye.
Tim, how do you vote? Aye. And I, Bill, vote aye.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks.
All right. Next up, can we table the minutes of 12/21/2022?
I make a motion to table the minutes of 12/21/22.
I'll second.
Rob made a motion to table the minutes of 12/21/22. Jamie seconded. Robin, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jamie, how do you vote?
Aye.
Tim, how do you vote? Aye. And I, Bill, vote aye. Discussion. Mike, how do you vote? He's back.
Yes, Mike.
Sorry about that.
No, hey, we're gonna have fun up here. 56 Singletary Ave, discussion.
Yes. So we did some more research on this one. We have some new findings. This is the farm, let me share first.
That goes to Jamie.
This is the farm where the abutter and the homeowner came in 2 meetings ago, a month ago, and discussed manure flowing in, potentially flowing into the resource area from the farm area. What we found is we still can't prove that there's manure flowing into the resource area, so we still have the same beliefs on that front. However, what we did find is that you have this animal area right here. This aerial is from 2001, and clearly it's in place. The 1997 aerial, it is not there. Brandon researched any permits for it, couldn't find any, and this is after the Wetlands Protection Act was signed and the bylaw was written in. So therefore, it is not in compliance. It technically is a wetland violation because it's in the 100-foot buffer zone of both the pond and the stream that goes behind the pond. And therefore, there is enforcement opportunity if the commission would like to go down that route on the gated area. However, we're still at the same spot with the manure flowing into the pond where we can't really prove that without being on site during a rainstorm.
Thank you for the overview and a question.
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer, that's why I'm asking the question. Because of our bylaw, Town of Sutton,
Yeah.
and for lack of a better term, the right to farm, I thought there were exemptions. It was farming-related activity within certain areas.
There are,
I
but
don't know if that would apply.
it has to be it has to be continual use. So, in our opinion, this field looks fallow and not used prior to when they cleared it and put that gated area in.
Okay.
Because of that, there's a 5-year rule generally. It's if you let a field go fallow for 5 years, generally it's back within WPA jurisdiction where Concom can do enforcement on it if you clear it or do any other alterations. So we can't really prove because aerials, when you get back into the 90s, are tougher and tougher to really see what's going on. So we can't say for sure that this field is fallow, but in our opinion, it looked fallow for at least 5 years, meaning that's back within the jurisdiction of the WPA
Okay.
and the bylaw.
Did we hear anything? They were going before the Board of Health on Wednesday of last week. Did we hear anything about what the outcome of that was or what actions they're going to be taking?
I think they're sending somebody out there, but I don't know if that's happened thus far. But no direct actions have been taken so far.
Okay.
You know, I look at this and I think we need to understand what's really going on, and I don't know that any of us really do. Farm animals in town are, as far as I'm concerned, a little bit sacred, right? You know, I think a lot of people enjoy seeing them, and I think it's important. I think that what we should do is, you know, if there's an issue, if the Board of Health identifies issues of like overcrowding or too much animal density, or there are issues with how they're being cared for, or cleanliness, or, you know, that's one thing, but I think that after the Board of Health does their visit, I think we need to go see it for ourselves, and I think the right approach would be to mitigate the issue to the extent that one exists. I don't think the board, or myself especially, wants to be in a position where we're prohibiting this activity. It's just doing it responsibly, right? And I don't think any of us know enough to know whether or not that's being done. You know, we have animals, we have wet meadows all over the place, and there's animals grazing in them, and there's, you know, so I mean, they're all over town. You know, people, and since so much of the town is a wetland, you know.
You're opening up a slippery slope.
Yeah, it's, and I don't know that it needs to be, right? I think we have a complaint, and I think that we owe the individual that made the complaint to investigate and understand and to the extent that we can mitigate, yeah, unless the Board of Health comes back and says it's, it's an issue beyond a wetland issue. The parcel of property is large enough, and I think that there are probably, and we're talking about roughly a dozen small animals. It's not a huge number of animals. I think that we need to roll up our sleeves and figure out a clever way to the extent an issue exists, a clever way to solve it.
Mr. Chair? I think back to that few meetings ago when the owner of the property came in with the gentleman that helped him, I think, with the farm. I think it's as simple as reaching out to him. He offered to go to the site, and now that we kind of understand it better, I didn't think we had a lot of understanding at that meeting. It might be as simple as educating him, going to his house and saying, hey, maybe everything will be okay, or maybe we make a few suggestions.
Yeah.
If everyone thinks it's a good idea, why don't we just start with reaching out and asking if we can have Greg, and if one of the commissioners want to go.
Yeah, I'd love to go,
So maybe you two could coordinate. I think that's a great idea if everybody does.
I agree.
Keep it that simple.
Yeah.
Right?
No, keeping it simple is
Because
what
then
it's all
maybe
about.
you could just have a little discussion if you see anything, and then you could just say, well, I suggested a few improvements. He offered me to come back in a few months in the spring and take a look, and
Yeah, you hear stories all the time, though, of situations where people take a look at it and they see a significant issue, and if that's the case, we need to approach it differently. But to the extent that there's some wetland impact that can be mitigated sensibly, I think that should be our priority, is to go down the path in that direction.
Yeah, I would be happy to do a site visit.
educate him, just show him the pictures that you shared tonight. If he didn't get to see it, just make him aware that he was in our jurisdiction with a building that was built when all these laws were in place, and
Yeah, I've lived in town for 13 years, and those pens have been there as long as I've been in town.
I think he was more than willing. It
Yeah,
sounded
he
like
was-
he'd
yeah,
pick up the manure. I bet if you made suggestions, just say you saw a few things. I think we'll come to a pretty easy.
And goats are pretty low impact, right? They're like sheep. They don't generate a huge amount of manure, or they don't, it's not.
So if we want to reach out to him, and if you need me present as well, just if I can make it, definitely. And I think what's good about that is that would show us going as a representation from the board, conservation. It sounds like Board of Health is going to be there, and that lets the neighbor who's complaining know as well.
I was just gonna, this is the nutshell version of the Board of Health meeting,
Thank you.
but paraphrase into the microphone. He had several services through Orkin. They were gonna look for a letter of confirmation that the issue's been mitigated. Like, he just had receipts, so they were gonna ask for some kind of summary of that. They did, even when they were there doing it, they thought a lot of it had to do, any rat issues had to do with the National Grid project, which was hugely expensive and disrupted a lot of land and whatnot. And then they're gonna let the animal inspector do her usual inspection.
Perfect.
Great,
There.
great overview. So it sounds like the boards in the town are all working together to get the best outcome for everybody.
My concern at the last meeting was just that the individual that had lodged the complaint didn't seem to be getting, was kind of falling between the cracks, as this situation kind of falls between the cracks, and that, he was entitled to a response from a board. That was my only issue.
And that can be frustrating when you're not sure where something ends and where something starts.
Yeah, I've been there. It's
Yeah. Not fun.
not
All right.
fun. Not
Great
fun.
overview. So we're all in agreement on that? I don't
Yes.
think we need a motion for that, I don't believe. 180, site visit certificate of compliance request, 188 Mendon Road, David and April DeWolf.
So we received an as-built and a letter from Alpha Omega Engineering stating that, sorry, sticky note away. The work at the above referenced property has been completed with minor deviations. Please see attached as-built and list of changes below. The two deviations that are listed is the driveway is gravel, except beginning and end of the driveway are paved, and the grass swale next to the driveway was reshaped to save more trees in the buffer zone. I found both of those things to be true. My only other concern was regarding the the limit of disturbance behind the house. So, I'm gonna pull up the initial plan. Okay. So, the limit of disturbance on this plan hugs the garage pretty closely and the house pretty closely and is, somewhere between 25 and 50 feet off of this rock wall in the rear. When I was on site, I took a picture. So right here, I'm standing between the garage and the house, pretty much in line with the back of each. This area back here, you see the woods kind of come across, and I don't know if this is true because I don't have a, engineered site plan, or when I'm out there, it's hard to know where that limit of disturbance was supposed to be. But it seems to me like it was supposed to be this line right here, and that a lot more lawn was created to this left area over here. That was my only other concern as far as the property. The rest looks like it was built in compliance with the order of conditions.
Can you show us the lawn area on the plan again?
Yeah.
Looks like the lawn here is going back to an old stone wall, right?
Which is on the plan.
Yeah, which is within or outside of the limit of work and within the 100-foot buffer zone.
Do you have any pictures of the site prior to being developed? Was it field-like? I mean, there were some old fields in there. I mean, is it just, only because it's to the wall, and then that's where the real ridge source, not that it's in the buffer zone, but I mean, I see that he didn't quite follow the plan, and he did a great job, but I think I personally, on this particular one, unless they did something horrific back there, which I don't think they did.
No.
And if it's an old stone wall, it looks fairly flat, like naturally flat, and like they didn't do a lot of work to make it. And not that we let I mean, I don't have any more discussion on it. I don't see anything that, I mean, just, I guess we could make a condition that there is to be no more use of the land beyond the stone wall.
No
That would be
creepage
the
or-
boundary, that's a hard line in the sand, I guess, right? I mean, that's where he would have gotten our attention, I think, if he definitely went through that wall. And it wasn't there anymore, and now there's absolutely no barrier between the resource area and his backyard. So just to mention that you creeped a little, and that's a hard, fast line at that stone wall.
Yeah, okay.
We'll send spies out in the woods.
But are we in agreement for certificate of compliance for 188
I am.
Bennett?
Yep. I make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 188 Mendon Road, with the condition that they don't do any more work beyond the stone wall.
I'll second it.
Rob made a motion for a certificate of compliance for 188 Mendon Road. Mike seconded. Robin, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Aye.
Tim, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jamie, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I, Bill, vote aye. Next up is a certificate of compliance for 214 Worcester Providence Turnpike, Dr. Rankin's office.
Could you close the public hearing on 188? Or did we already do that?
It's
It's a discussion.
So,
Discussion,
oh, okay,
yeah.
yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
We've already closed the public hearing on that one.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so, I'm trying to find the file
We
here.
get lucky once in a while. we get it.
Sometimes when we
Sometimes
get it
we're
right, I
right.
second guess ourselves.
Okay. So, 214 Worcester Providence Turnpike, if you remember, was a pretty recent one. I think it was issued, and the order conditions was issued in September or October even. And this is the site plan. What they did is a turnaround area over here and I don't know why it's doing that, but a proposed shed here. We received a letter from the engineer stating that EGI found that the final site conditions for the project appear to be in substantial compliance with the order of conditions issued, except for the following deviation. The addition of crushed gravel around the proposed 10 by 20 shed. While the gravel surface was not shown on the sketch plan reference, the crushed gravel allows for cleaning and infiltration on site of any runoff, and in the opinion of EGI, does not have any negative impact to the surrounding resource areas or buffer zones. So I'm gonna show you a picture of,
That's usually what we want under a shed anyway.
now the only other thing is that, so here's a picture of that gravel. And that goes right to about under where I'm standing and then back around, and then you have the infiltration trench following the right side. The only thing on this one is that the shed hasn't been actually installed yet. As you can see, I'm standing at what should be the shed. So technically, they haven't done all the work that they laid out in the order of conditions. So it's up to the commission's discretion to either, I mean, I think the right way to do it would be to wait for the COC until that shed's put in, but that's up to the commission.
I'm sorry, wait for what?
The shed to be
Shed.
built, it's not been built.
Supposed
Before we give them a certificate of compliance?
Yeah,
Well, the only reason, can we go back to the drawing?
Yeah.
Is it even in the, wasn't that 200 foot in the back of the building? Is this even in the shed?
No, because it's, the riverfront.
riverfront area.
Right, and I was looking at 200 feet, and I thought it was to the back of the, I don't, sure that the shed's in a,
It is, and
It is?
if I can zoom in
I think
here.
it just makes it in. The shed, if memory serves, is gonna be like,
so I
Brought in by a
mean, I
truck.
think we should issue it, and only because, not to go against Greg by any means, but if everything's done, there's no site work, and they're literally gonna put a shed on top of the stone, I don't have any, I mean, it's not like they need to do erosion control to put the shed in. If they were gonna, if the work wasn't done and they still had to do all that prep work, that to
Like
me
you
would
said, it's
be.
just gonna be like a truck dropping it
It's
off.
like a
Right, I mean,
skip
you
shed.
kinda,
No, I absolutely see where you're coming from.
just because this is a great business in town, and I've personally been by numerous, I mean, it's meticulously maintained.
I will tell you, I was recently at the property as of yesterday,
Oh, okay.
and it is 1,000 times better pulling in and pulling out. This is one that, how it was on paper, and then now that it's done, it's great to see like how well this went, both for aesthetics, safety, the environment, like it's good. So I personally don't have a problem with the shed
And
coming
during
in.
site, yeah, the whole project was impeccable. I followed it. It
And he
was
worked quick
impeccable.
to get it
Quick,
done.
Fast, great job, asset to the town.
Absolutely.
So,
So we're gonna make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance to 214 Worcester to Providence Turnpike.
Just note that they can add a shed without coming in.
Oh, yeah, and adding a shed without, no, that's good. Add a shed
record.
when you're ready.
I'll second it.
Rob made a motion for 214 Worcester Providence, Mike seconded, Robin, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Tim, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jamie, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I, Bill, vote aye. Good job. Next up is 41 Old Mill Road, and I want to apologize. I thought you two were here for the one we already talked about, so you got a show tonight.
It's our fault for not coming earlier.
I wouldn't have kept you here. But if we're stuck here, you guys gotta get stuck here too. I believe
Old
the
Mill, oh.
Old Mill, right? Is that, you are, okay. Welcome back. Greg?
Yeah.
Raouf, we have an overview, anything new to report?
Just wait for Greg, or
Yeah. So we had some more issues with site stabilization and runoff coming into the road, especially right where the property meets the roadway, and some coming down onto the neighbor's property. So we reached back out and they produced, or ROF produced a erosion control and site stabilization plan. And that's what's in front of us here. This is a very new one that I haven't had a chance to review yet because I just got a couple hours ago, but it looks like they got some proposed stormwater basins for construction on either side of the driveway coming down, a new wall, which we knew about, right over here where that steep grade is coming down.
Me and you've been working on this so long for 2 weeks, we have to back up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because when we left the meeting, it was with an enforcement with 4 issues, and we
Yeah.
requested an existing condition plan.
Yeah.
So we kind of jumped ahead a little. Maybe just for everybody's sake.
Review.
Do you want to start at the existing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Would that help you
Yeah.
guys? Because all of a
Right.
sudden, there's a whole
Yeah.
plan of what we're going to do to fix everything, and they're
Yeah.
working on
Yeah,
it, which
just
is
take
great.
a couple
but-
steps back.
Yeah. So the way we
Because
left.
remember, we just had ideas that things weren't going right, and that we do enforcement based on 4 items.
Yes.
I think,
Yep. So we had those.
sorry.
No, you're right. I should have.
No worries.
But yeah, so at the last meeting, the cease and desist and enforcement order were issued. We asked them to come up with an as-built plan to see what the site looks like currently, to figure out where there's any nonconformities with the approved site plan. What we found after receiving that as-built plan was what we knew about the electric was not in the right place because it was not buried yet, so that was clear to us, but the driveway was not, correctly angled, and therefore,
Do you have so there's 2 different plans, just because I was privy with it all week?
Yeah.
There wasn't, so before we came up with this plan, there was an existing conditions plan that doesn't have so much stuff on it. It just shows what we approved and what's out at the site right now. Just so I can follow it.
no, absolutely.
It's for me. I need it.
It's for you.
It's for me.
It's not for me at all.
You need my help?
No, I got it here, new share, okay, it's on there. Alright, so, as you can see, the red lines are the new grades, the black lines are the proposed grades. They don't really match up in the area of the driveway. The lines should have been angling that driveway towards the trench that's running on the page south side of that driveway down to the infiltration basin, or the forebay. It's angled a little more at page north, I guess you would say, whereas all the stormwater runoff is not going to be coming into that basin, but instead some of it will come onto the top of it, if you're looking at the page this way, which is going to cause issues with stormwater runoff, as water will eventually flow on the right side of the driveway and then down into the street. So that's the biggest nonconformity. Other nonconformities we have are down in this area, the grade is far too steep compared to the initial site plan. We also have the driveway is actually just in the wrong location down here where it was supposed to take a bend. It kind of cut that bend out and hung a little closer to the resource area than was proposed. And then that's going to create issues with installing this forebay because the top of the forebay right here was proposed where the driveway is currently, so it's going to have to be reshaped or repositioned somehow to allow for it to work as it was intended.
So if I could, through the chair, I'll only have some discussion now, because this is where I became pervy and worked on it this week to get to where we are today. I think as we had discussion with the engineer, we decided that it would be in everybody's best interest to leave the driveway where it is, that it wouldn't really gain a lot to move it. I mean, out of principle, could we say this was the plan that was approved, but I didn't think that was anybody's best interest? It's to get the site stabilized, there's a driveway in. So, the existing conditions laid out the things that we thought. There was the 4, like Greg just went over, I won't do it again. So, if there's no questions about the existing condition, it's exactly what we thought. There was 4 things on the item: driveway in the wrong location, the grading up at the top that's steeper, the grading of the driveway. So, at least we understand. And then, if there's no questions, I guess now we could move to the plan to move forward, because those were the 2 things. We wanted an existing condition plan to understand what happened, and then how do we move forward? Because we had an approved plan, and then we have the plan that we have to all agree on. The one thing that we needed to do is get the site stabilized. Since the last meeting, over these last 2 weeks, we've had torrential rain. I've done a couple inspections. I sent some pictures. I mean, we had substantial washouts, sediment go all the way down the street, into a pipe, cross the street, into the resource area. So, I think the building department got involved because of runoff out into the street. The neighbor was very upset with the whole project in general. I think it's been taken very serious these last 2 weeks, on the owner's part, on the engineer's part. I won't speak for anybody else, but there seems to be a lot that's gone on today, which is exciting. it seems like we have a clear path. When we go to the new plan, that myself and Brandon gave him the okay to get working, which is just stabilization. It's not any approved work other than stabilizing all this water and the issues that we have. So, does anyone want to ask questions, I mean, about this existing condition plan? Definitely a lot.
There's other minor non-conformities, like the grading behind the house, but that's technically outside of our jurisdiction, but.
So what's the
So
fix?
go to the other screen?
Yeah.
It's a
So
lot
what's-
to
so
take
what's-
in.
so
I've been
what's
looking
happening
at it and
here?
going back and forth, so I think the fix is an excellent one. It was done by their engineer, so the Raouf, and I'm sure he can explain, maybe let Raouf explain the fix to
Yeah,
the
yes,
rest of you
please.
guys.
Yeah.
That way it's,
Okay.
the way it was, you know.
So starting from the street, I mean, the first thing you have the electric conduit is in the wrong place, and it's where we had the infiltration swale proposed. So this will be removed completely because it did not pass actually the inspection by the electrical inspector. So the whole electric line is going to be removed completely, redirected, and we're going to have to propose a new location outside the infiltration system. So right now they close that area by the street to prevent the erosion. We put like double layers of erosion and stones to control the area. It seems to work right now. The driveway is shifted to closer to the wetland, and also it's the slope of the driveway on the left and right is just in different locations. Like in the beginning, it sloped toward the north side. On the middle, it sloped toward the wetland side, and then in the end, it's just directly toward the street. I propose to do a couple basins at the end of the driveway and also add a drainage diverter, but the problem, we cannot get asphalt at this time of the year to do the drainage diverter. So I added a drainage swale on the side of the driveway, and we're gonna put some check dams in it. And after we close that trench for the utilities, we're gonna redirect that swale toward another basin where we had the original basin proposed. And with the double erosion controls around this whole area, I mean, hopefully this will control everything. We have a company that's coming hopefully tomorrow to start working on installing a lot of erosion controls on the whole site. The end of the driveway, they made the pavement larger where we had the proposed dry well. So we're gonna have to relocate that somewhere else because it cannot be in the pavement. And down the area where I proposed 3-to-1 slope, they did 1-to-1 slope and they left a very flat area, but that slope is very unstable and the mud keeps going into the resource area. So I'm proposing to add a 1-to-1 stabilized wall, retaining wall, porous wall that the runoff the water can go through it. The main issue we have is just very muddy, very slippery. We cannot get a machine in this area to bring those big rocks, so hopefully in a dry time or when the ground is frozen, we can bring that in. But we're starting with the erosion controls right now by the street, adding double layers of erosion at that steep slope in the back until the weather helps so we can continue the other work on the wall. But in the next couple weeks, we will be able, hopefully the contractor is here, he will be able to stabilize this whole area around the driveway.
Thank you for the overview. The contractor,
So, just one more thing, through the chair. Before I came to the meeting, I stopped this morning. I talked with one of the contractors that are on site, Tim from Perro Construction. We had a great conversation. We went over the plan. I think Raul was out after or had conversation with him. And I said, hey, I'll come back before I go to the meeting because I'd like to see some progress.
Sure.
So I'm happy to say, it was dark, but the street was very clean. The driveway was very clean. They had probably on the left side going up, which would be just scroll it over a little. And I think this is a new area of erosion control. That left area, it looked like there was double layer of brand new silt fence with the wattle and,
Yeah.
there was definitely a lot of measures going on. I'm sure if weather cooperates, like I think it will, the rain doesn't seem heavy. And I didn't see any issues as far as it getting worse. It only got better. I had a lot of concerns a few days ago, and I feel much better tonight to say that I think that in 2 weeks, we'll probably be able to say it looks something like this plan. And then we can let the owners and the contractor speak on that. But what I see is extremely large effort to make this right, which I like and makes me very happy because, like we talk about, no one likes enforcement. Just so you guys all know, it's not the funnest part of our job. But what I saw, I think we're well on our way to mending the plan to where it'll just be a better project, because the neighbor that you have to live next door probably won't be upset if you stop this from going out in the street. So that's the goal, stabilize the site, and then I think we had to digest this plan is to move forward. It's just to stabilize the site for now, under enforcement, which I think, do we all agree that's a good plan?
I do.
Yeah.
And then I didn't totally understand all the engineering and if we can't get asphalt, but I think that if Raouf works and gives us a great engineered plan and you guys review it.
Is it the same site contractor? That's what I wanted to,
No.
okay,
So
so,
it's a local guy that
Okay.
I've personally worked with before that have had great luck with. He's
Okay.
out there, let's terrorize him a little. Bring him right up there and make him talk. Make him promise what he's gonna do a great job.
okay, so the gentleman in the audience that Mike just signaled out is a new site contractor, so you've been made familiar with the plan that's behind me. I just wanted to get that on the record. And sir, your name for the record?
Ken Perro.
Ken Perro. And I believe you're the same one that just did the work at Dr. Rankin's office, is that correct?
Both times.
You did a nice job. Okay, so I personally feel like we've made great strides in the past couple weeks. So thank you all for coming in to the board. Does anyone else from the board have anything else?
Maybe just, did you guys have any questions for us? Because sometimes it's scary and I can tell you're a young couple. So come talk to us. It shouldn't be terrifying.
Come on
I
down and
promise
just
we're not a terrifying
say your
board.
name and address for the record, so it's on there.
Jack O'Brien, I'm the, one of the owners. My wife also owns the construction lot as well. We're at 41 Old Mill Road.
Okay.
And I can't thank you guys enough for everything. I mean, I echo everything you guys have said about Raouf, what I've known from Ken from the last week. This is serious, and we're taking it seriously. Like you said, no one likes enforcement. You know, we don't either. We want more than anything. I've lived in the area my whole life. I'm actually from Millbury, so I know I grew up on the wrong side of the fence, but we're oh, perfect. I remember back when your building was the pizza place. I'm fourth generation Millbury. I've been there a long time. I'm excited to join Sutton. My wife's excited to live on a nice house on the hill and raise a couple of kids and get old here. So we want nothing more than to join the neighborhood and just be part of the community. So, I mean, everything you guys are doing is just to make sure that we're doing this right with the least damage. So I can't thank you guys enough for helping us out and finding a way to let us keep going.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You're on the right track. I mean,
Going on the right-
it sounds like. the
Even
next-
though you insulted Mike from being from Millbury.
Yeah.
Goes both ways, I guess.
Yeah, I still think it was one town. Anyone else from the board?
I have one quick
Yes.
question. By not repitching the driveway back to the way it was originally designed, what potential for future issues does that create? I mean, nobody wants to be here all the time because there's a continued washout situation even after construction is completed.
Well, when we do the top coat, we will have to add couple drainage diverters on the driveway to force the runoff to go on the drainage swales on both sides. If we cannot fix it during.
So the way you addressed the issue was to create a drainage swale on what was the high side of the driveway before the way it was originally drawn.
Yes, well, I mean, we're gonna have two swales on both sides, and also we're gonna have drainage diverters during the top coat, when we do the top coat for the pavement, to force the runoff to go to the swales themselves and then to the basins. I mean, my plan is to keep those basins as permanent and clean them up and have them as permanent basin at the end of the work. And maybe have a pipe underneath the driveway to connect them together.
You good? One more thing. Because top coating and fixing things, and I think that one of the things we should all understand now is like, so occupancy is gonna come, and you're gonna wanna move in. I think that we should condition that the work has to be completed before occupancy of the home. I don't think that'll hurt them. I think they have a long way to go. You'll be well into spring, you know, like probably a summertime move-in date. Is that what you're thinking? So I'm sure in the spring, you know, come June-ish, you'll be able to probably really get the site looking good. So just, I think, as we move forward and we do some finalizing, maybe you could just know a condition I think I would like and feel comfortable with was that there'd be no occupancy of the home until you have a certificate of compliance. Maybe the growing season isn't over, I don't know if we'll be able to fully issue it, but we could even say partial, only because of growing season, I don't know. I wouldn't want to hold up your occupancy if the work was done and it just wasn't growing. So at the very least, we could do a temporary if the work's completed and we're just waiting for some stabilization. Because that could happen.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
sound like a condition
Sounds
that would
good, yeah.
make everybody help to feel better? Being promised that things would be in a completion state.
And that it functions the way it's supposed to.
Yeah,
Right?
well-
You know, that's the other.
We'll have a lot of rainy months to see.
Yep.
One question for the board. Does the board see this as a minor field change, or are you gonna want an amended notice of intent for?
So I talked to Brandon today about,
Yes.
sorry, so.
No, take,
No,
you-
So me and I had a specific conversation, because as we start to set precedents, as we deal with different things, Brandon thought it best to do it under enforcement. He didn't want to close it out and start over again. He thought it could almost be counterproductive and slow it down. That as long as the plan, plus we want to be mindful for cost. I mean, we don't want to make people spend money that doesn't accomplish anything. The goal is to accomplish a project that we can all
Live
know
with.
it's a good one for the public's best interest. So I think, after speaking with Brandon, I personally think just as long as we have a plan that we've agreed to that gets
sign in.
signed,
Yeah.
I think, do you guys agree?
So consider this a minor field change under the enforcement.
Field change.
I think it's best talking it out this
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
And we've got a copy of the plan.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Anybody else from the, the road,
Just
the
ask the owners
excavator?
if they have questions, because sometimes I don't want them to leave.
I was gonna say,
Sorry.
welcome to Sutton, first of all. Thank you. And do either of you have any questions, or?
I don't have anything else right now.
So I'll leave it at this. If anything comes up, don't be afraid to reach out to the board. Wanda will give you my information if you have questions, or I'm gonna volunteer. Mike's happy to answer questions. So just to keep you guys moving forward, so you can be in for hopefully the summer, right? Good. Thanks for everyone for coming in, and we probably need a motion for a minor field change, right?
No, you can
No?
just do.
Well, we should wait until the plan's complete. I think.
Yeah, I
our
would-
original
I would
things
think
are-
that, yeah.
See, I'm trying to get you going.
No, no.
Okay, good.
Well, they are.
No, this
They're
is a
there.
lot,
They're-
this
they're-
is
this
great.
is-
Like I
This
said,
is
there were
great.
machines on site. I seen a huge improvement from this morning till tonight, so.
I
It's
saw
nice to
his
know-
work at
it's always
Rank of the.
nice to know who you.
Yeah.
So the mystery of the unknown of who you're dealing with sometimes can be some of the hardest part with him. Someone cares, trust me, you're not in any trouble. You're only in trouble when you don't help, work with us, that's
Right.
all.
I just feel bad I made him sit here through the other stuff. All right, thanks for coming in.
Thanks.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you, have a good night. Next thing up is planning board review for 15 Pleasant Valley Road.
All the paperwork is there on the clipboard.
All that
Have a good night.
paperwork.
What is this? Oh, GB and Alexi Singh of North Chatham, Mass, and the street number is 15 Pleasant Valley Road. Proposed site plan for Torrington Properties. Is this Bowler Engineering? Is this the old red metal building?
I think this is the,
Where, that's now gone, where Market 30,
yeah, it's
Two,
the
kind-
triangular sort of, there's a pad there, but it's overgrown.
yeah.
Right as you come off
Yeah,
146.
I think you're right. It's right in the area, but they made them move the driveway because they can't come off of 146. It's gotta come off inside of Pleasant Valley Road.
Okay, so it's the proposed medical clinic and single-story 5,100 square foot building. My assumption is that's in our jurisdiction, right?
That is?
Is it not?
Yeah, see, they were gonna come off 146 before, but now they have to go in further so that there's not a danger area.
So they enter in off Galaxy.
Does all the
Yeah.
catch basins and things bring it into our jurisdiction, even if, are those considered resource areas when you get, no?
Not if it's a permanent stormwater structure.
So then I don't.
Through the chair,
Yes. Who's speaking?
Brandon.
Oh, Brandon.
Hi, Brandon.
Welcome, Brandon. Fill us
Hi.
in.
no jurisdiction for that lot.
Oh, thank you. Okay,
Easy.
thank you.
For chiming in.
No jurisdiction. That's easy. Okay. planning view. And then I think if there's nothing else before Mike steps away, is there anything else before I give a Brittenell update? So,
It's on
Actually,
unexpected
real quick.
business.
yeah,
In connection with the approval for Lackey Dam Road, there's a conservation restriction agreement that is probably somewhere not moving forward. I'd like to kind of add it to the board business agenda until we get some clarity on whether or not it's in a form that the town can sign, and I don't want to end up in a situation where we haven't advanced the process and it becomes necessary to execute it, and we're starting then.
Yeah. I believe, Brandon, and correct me if I'm wrong, did you send an email out to somebody asking about the status of the CR?
I sent an email to Wanda this here, if anything has happened in town hall.
Nothing's happened.
So
yet.
it might be a good idea to put a little bit of a narrative together to explain kind of why and what it accomplishes, and that, obviously it's a condition of the authorization for the project, and I would imagine I think the select board's the one that ultimately needs to sign it. So, if you and Brandon can provide your 2 cents in terms of how it stacks up to other CRs that you've seen in the past and whether or not it's consistent in form.
Yeah.
And, give them the opportunity to share it with town council and provide comments to us so that we can address them with the applicant to the extent that it's necessary.
Yeah.
But it's just a little bit of, a little bit of nudge, a little bit of proactivity to make sure we don't end up in a jam.
I checked today with the town manager's secretary, and she said she has not received anything yet on it.
Okay, so I don't know who would be responsible for making it move, but we need to make it move.
Yeah.
That's it.
Brunel, I'll recuse myself.
yeah, Mike's gonna recuse on this. So, Brandon and I met on Zoom with, Magistrate Kennedy and Jess Brittenell on December 29th, I believe it was, Brandon, is that correct?
Whatever last Thursday
Yeah,
was, yeah.
last Thursday, and kind of to summarize, and Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, he's given us till some point in February, or sometime in February for Jess to either have these fines paid or come back in and explain why they're not. And he suggested if she does come back in, that he would recommend her, or she has the right to bring in an attorney. What I pretty much got out of it is that any fines, if she made whole for the amount that's owed to the town of Sutton, that no fines were really gonna be imposed. But it'd be a different story if she didn't pay. Brandon, am I summarizing that correctly?
Yes, I'll just add that originally went in and told the magistrate that the Conservation Commission voted to make a recommendation to him that the full $54,000 worth of fines be enforced. And he didn't like that idea. So Bill and I went to Plan B, which was to reduce that number to $12,000, which will cover my fee and make the taxpayers of Sutton whole for all the work that had to be done by personnel and expenses on the town's part as a part of this whole ordeal. And the magistrate thought that the $12,000 number was a very reasonable number, and he recommended that Jessica pay that. At which point she really objected. She just stated that she wasn't expecting $12,000. She was expecting the fines to be repealed, and then only have to pay my fee.
Which she thought was only gonna be a couple $1,000s. And that's
Right.
and not to cut you off, but that's when she said she hadn't received any summarized invoice, and I reiterated that it was sent by email twice, and that I specifically had one to send it by certified mail, and that's when Jess did say that she did sign off for it and saw it, but that at that point was only totaling don't hold me to the exact number, about $8,000 or $8,300 or $8,400. And the judge said, where did we get to the 12? And I said not the judge, the magistrate, I said that we would give Jess an updated, for lack of a better term, invoice or numbers showing the total amount. And he appreciated that.
Correct. And at which point I then started directing Wanda to stop tallying up things on her end, including the cost of certified mailings,
Yeah.
the cost, even the cost of the ticket books that had to be custom made for this particular issue. All of the time that she spent on everything, add up the hours that she's done, multiply it by her hourly salary rate, even the amount of time for Pam or Christine to be in the room filming it during that period. So those are the kinds of things that I'm asking for Wanda to try to tally up. Anything that anyone has had to do in town hall related to this, so that a number can be brought up to justify the $12,000. It's really a fine. It's a $12,000 fine instead of a $54,000 fine. And the magistrate just wanted a as close to a line item invoice on it as possible, so that the taxpayers can be made whole.
Thank you, Brandon. And that was just so we came up with a number that was very close to hitting. So no one's making any money. The town is not making any money. It's just to cover at this point, the debt. And the magistrate did ask why we wanted this, and I said at this point right now, the town of Sutton taxpayers are on the hook for this. And I said I personally don't feel as the chair of the conservation, nor as a taxpayer in the town of Sutton, that I or anybody else should be paying for this that has nothing to do with us. He agreed. But Jess did ask for something again, so I did tell Jess we would email it to her, but we would have it certified mail or whatever the correct term is, so that she could sign for it to receive it. And the way it was left is we have another follow-up at some point end of February, and I asked the magistrate to avoid wasting his time, Brandon's time, my time, or anybody else, or Jess's time, or anybody else's time. If this was paid, could we just simply reach out to him and say this was paid? And he did say yep, and basically at that point this would come to an end. He did ask me why we as a board voted to continue with the fines, and I explained to him that this project has been about 6 or 7 years. Normally a project like this would have been done minimum, couple years, max 3 years, typically not more than 3 years for a single family home, and that every other property around there was in and out in 3 years. And we just felt if we let this one go, it sets a precedent with the town that people can do whatever they want, not pay the fines and not pay any of the tax fees to the town. So that's where it was left. The rough numbers Wanda has given me today, $10,319.17, but we're not up to date on it, but that's where the number stands now. And just for anyone watching at home, we're not looking to find hidden money for this. We're just trying to make it whole. We're not looking for money that's not due or owed to the town. Just put that on record. So does anyone, Brandon, do you have anything else, or does anyone from the board have any comments on it?
I will just add that the magistrate created a new hearing date for February 2nd. That's another Thursday at 10 a.m. on Zoom. If Jessica decides not to pay the fine, we're going to have a full-blown hearing, and he told us both to, if that's the case, that just presume that he has not heard a single thing we've ever said, and that we were going to go in there and make our cases from scratch. And the town would have to make its case from scratch as to why these fines are justified and why she was in non-compliance and all that stuff. And then Jessica would make her, her argument as well. And he recommended that if she's going to go that route, that she should hire a lawyer. That said, he also stated that the cost of a lawyer would probably negate any gains that she might make, with having to pay the $12,000 fine. And not only that, but if the town makes a compelling case that the fines could end up being back to $54,000. So she's got a bit to think about regarding the $12,000 number. So that's it.
Yeah, so I think the way it was left is if the payment or fine, for lack of a better term, is received into this office before February 2nd at 10 a.m., Brandon and I will reach out to the court, let them know the money's been received. If not, we will meet with the Magistrate Kennedy and explain we have not got it, and like Brandon, you just heard what Brandon said, we'll be to the next stage.
Correct.
To stage one.
Back to stage one, and it would be a lot of time for everybody, and
Just cost the town more.
yeah, I want to say that he thought the town should have representation at that one too, but I might have misunderstood that. So, long story short, that's why I would like to make sure Jess gets this by email this week, and if it can be mailed out this week, so it gives her as much time. It basically would give her a few weeks to come up with it.
One comment. To the extent that the meeting on the 2nd happens, we have itemized, or we're working at completing or updating an itemized list of expenses that have been incurred by the town in connection with the enforcement of this situation. I think that to the extent it does go February 2nd to a full-blown starting from scratch, and she is represented by an attorney, it would probably be in the board's best interest to be represented as well.
Oh, it would behoove our town.
Yes.
Which
100%.
also would add additional expense. So the 12 may not be 12, the 12 may become 20 when you look at the cost associated with our retention of counsel.
Which it appears the magistrate is kind of trying to drive that home to her.
So
Based
the,
on bill
Yes,
summarization.
Yes.
Correct. Correct.
so I think that it is important when we send the itemized list to Ms. Britnell, that it be clear and that there's a cover letter attached to it that says that these are expenses incurred to date.
Oh, they would say that.
And that,
I would assume they would say that.
well, just know on what we send her,
Yeah.
what we send her, there'd be a cover letter on it that says these are for expenses incurred to date. Any preparation required for a February 2nd meeting or the costs associated, we would be looking for the reimbursement of legal fees associated with our retention of counsel to represent us in the matter
Should it
as
be
well.
needed?
Should, in the event it goes in that direction, but
Because that would be post February 2nd.
Yeah.
it's, as soon as we retain counsel, it's gonna double that figure
Oh, in a second. Yeah.
quickly.
Yep.
And
I agree with Jamie, and I'm really hopeful that.
but we just need to be really transparent and upfront that these represent costs incurred to date, and that any additional costs associated with we would look to recover in addition to what's itemized on that list.
I like how you spelling that out or explaining it. And at that point, if it goes beyond February 2nd, we're starting from square one. So everything that was we're starting over. So I think we need to make that clear, and I'm hoping, I know it's busy in this conservation office, but I'm hoping we can make that the priority, because I don't want Jess to get this on January 31st and then go in and say, I was only given this 2 days or 3 days before the court hearing. I want to give her as much time as possible.
I agree.
She knew on the meeting last Thursday, she thought it was about 8,000 approximately. So I don't want any surprises, and I want to do right by the board and give her as much time as possible. But we all agreed that but Brandon and I and the magistrate wanted this to be paid before February 2nd, not to be drawn out.
Okay.
Agreed.
And we had been in the past, and I can understand why she may think that, because in the past, we had 2 lists of expenses.
Yeah.
We had Brandon's fee outlined separately, and we had the town expenses outlined separately.
Exactly.
So this is the first time we've combined the 2.
And I believe if we looked at Brandon's fee alone, and when I say Brandon's fee, it's not really Brandon's fee.
It's a consultation fee.
It's a consultation
Yes.
fee, and Brandon just happens to be the town consultant in
Yes,
this
he
case.
happens to be the person.
If I'm reading this correctly, it was about 8,610. So I believe that's where she got the 8,000 dollar amount, and there was already money that work Brandon did that was coming out of our account, that's where we're looking to make our account be made whole again. So again, right now, not finished with $10,319.17. Wanda, I spoke to Wanda,
Now,
she's gonna try to
just to
finish this up.
clarify, because two of these things imply paid, and those are paid out of our conservation
They were
funds.
paid out of our wetlands
Yes,
account.
so I just want to make sure that that's clear as well. So that's what, like, gets us much closer to that $12,000 that
That's why I marked
that
it
we've
that way.
asked for, because they're paid, but they're paid out of our account, not out of her account.
And good point. And Brandon, our wetlands account, or Greg, you guys can both answer this. Just to be clear, where does the money come from the wetlands account?
Comes from the notice.
It comes from
NRAs and
the
RDAs.
town, it comes from the town share of the Wetlands Protection Act fee and the bylaw fee.
So in other words, that money that was paid to date out of that account is money that's been paid by other people that have come in front of this board.
Correct.
Or
Correct.
engineers or what have you. So that's why it's even more important that we show that, because right now, those people, 'cause some of them would be town taxpayers, have paid that.
They are all taxpayers,
Yeah,
because they're all
well-
homeowners.
Yeah, you're right.
Right, exactly.
Do we have a,
Through the,
Yep.
okay, I was gonna say a couple things, and this gets back to Jamie's comments about hiring a lawyer. I just want to say, it would be nice to have town council represent us, but you gotta get select board's permission for that. And we originally requested town council on this matter from the beginning, but then town council came back and said, you know, you don't need us. This is simple enough. You can take care of it yourself. And here we are. But you know, asking for, ask town manager Jim to ask the select board if we can have town council if it comes to it, might be a good way to go. Otherwise, the commission can still hire a lawyer. It would just have to be out of your own funds, right? And I know there's a second thing, but I forgot. So go ahead.
to the extent that we're looking to engage town council, we need to be having these conversations in real time because February 2nd is right around the corner, right? And they would obviously need time to prepare to the extent that,
So it would be post February 2nd. At February 2nd, if fines are not paid, as I understand it, then that's when we go back to square one. So that's when we would be preparing for another trial.
but that's the
Or-
magistrate hearing date.
The trial would actually happen on February 2nd.
It
So
would
it has to be
happen?
done before, oh yeah, if she doesn't pay by February 2nd, that hearing is as if we had never heard it, and I have to come to him and pretty much start from scratch and explain to him exactly what happened, why enforcement was why there was enforcement.
Necessary at all.
And necessary at all, and justify every single $300 fine.
How can we
Right.
possibly prepare for that if her deadline of payment is the same date as the court date?
Yeah, Brandon, thank you for clarifying that, because I misunderstood that. I thought it was gonna be a check-in with him. He was gonna say, okay, this is not resolved.
That's
You know.
not
That's how I
not what I
interpreted it.
heard.
Brandon, and
No,
Brandon's
that's-
been more involved than I, so Brandon, I'm going with you're correct and I'm wrong,
Okay.
as a safety net, and,
Yeah.
That gives us under 30 days for any kind of counsel to be prepared for anything that should happen that day. That's really disturbing.
And that's why I can't stress enough how important it is to get this dollar amount out to Jess right away, because let's hopefully, in a perfect world, Jess comes up here next Monday with a check, and then we're all done, and we don't have to, we can all move on.
But should that not happen, then by next Monday, we need to have engaged counsel,
I
because they
was-
need to start getting prepared for this.
Brandon, do you have access to the magistrate? Can you send him an email or ask him a question?
I don't have direct access. I would have to go through a clerk at the Uxbridge District Court.
Because Robin raises a really good point, which is we're not going to know whether or not it's showtime until the morning of the show.
Right, and then we need to be prepared for that, because she may already be prepared for
And
that.
there's a cost associated with engaging counsel to prepare that may not be
Right.
necessary. And to the extent that, could we have February 2nd be a payment deadline and have the actual hearing
That same day.
at a time that follows, right? So kind of, or to the extent that we don't receive payment on the 2nd of February, can we ask for a continuance so that we can engage counsel at that time to reapproach the process, right?
He doesn't have to approve it.
No, I know,
Right,
I know he
no.
doesn't, but it would, it just would be,
My thought process is more towards what Bill is saying. Just get it to her as soon as humanly possible. I think that she'll engage us at that point. And if she doesn't, within a couple of days of receipt, then we can at least have town council being prepared so that we have them available, should we need them. Like, that's how I would perceive that, because we can't go into this blindly. She's gonna go in prepared.
or maybe not, you know,
Right.
I don't,
Well, we have to assume she will.
I also want to put this out.
but
I
it just
would,
adds but by engaging town council, they're not gonna take a phone call without issuing an invoice, so it adds a layer of cost.
It does, and so that goes to your point where the note that we sent her says, that's what it is today, and should town council or anybody else need to be included, then those fees will be incurred by you. Like, those things need to be said to her, because, so that she understands that $12,000 is less than what it could be, should we have to go further. But that needs to happen
Like-
imminently.
My concern is that February 2nd, we only have one meeting between now and February 2nd. So
Right.
maybe we,
Through-
I don't know, I don't know
Through the chair?
The magistrate,
Brandon wants to.
oh, yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
I would consider this situation, I would categorize it under the umbrella of litigation. And the ability to discuss strategy on litigation is one of those reasons for having an executive session, which is private, so as not to give away strategy. So I just want to put it out there that's an option if you decide that you think it's a good idea to go into executive session.
Ed,
valid.
could we do that at this point?
No, it needs to be,
To be posted.
it needs to be an agenda item that indicates
Has to
an
be-
executive session.
On the agenda.
So why don't we
But
put
that's
that on
over
the
2
next
weeks from
meeting
now.
agenda?
You have to
But
have a good reason, or you
That
can't do
note
it.
needs to go out to her tomorrow.
We went through that before.
Yeah. I think we want to wrap this up.
But
So-
that note needs to go out to her
So-
before.
Can we put on the agenda for a executive discussion or session or whatever?
Executive discussion, is that what it is?
Executive session. Brandon, do we need anything more than that?
Yeah, you need specific.
It just needs to be put on the agenda, that's all.
Well, it needs to be specific.
So.
An
so-
executive session,
An executive session for 224 Manchog Road at the
To
next
discuss
meeting.
litigation.
To discuss litigation, like that's as specific as we could possibly get at this point.
And you'll read a hearing, when you go into executive session.
Someone will give me a blurb to read.
There's a litigation blurb that you can
Okay.
read, and then you'll be done.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then you'll say to reconvene, only to adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
Like-
That means anyone watching at home doesn't have to stay on to come back, because nothing else will happen after we.
Nothing else will happen except that you will adjourn the meeting.
Okay. I think out of, we need to probably stop this not discuss this any further at this point. But I would ask that we get those numbers out to Jess as soon as possible.
Yeah.
with a cover letter that says these are expenses incurred to date.
To date.
And to date, and that any additional expenses we would be seeking additional compensation for additional incurred expenses.
Yes. So what will that be on the next meeting?
What's the availability on the?
On the next meeting?
Oh, on the 18th, you've got two on there, 6:30 and 6:35.
So it'll be 6:40?
Can you make executive session? Does it have to be a time, or could it be for the last point in the meeting?
I mean, you could also, I prefer if it was the last agenda item. in the meeting.
So can we just say?
You could also have an additional meeting with just an executive session in it. if
Oh,
you know.
so it doesn't have to be that day?
Like, you could set up a. I mean, we'd have to
Special
work with the
meeting?
schedule, but you can
Yeah, and it has to be so much time in advance, so we might be better off doing it on the January 18th. But do we have to list a time, or can we specifically say it's at the last agenda item?
Under board business, maybe?
How much time do you need to acknowledge, is it a week or 2 weeks? To
I
post
It's
it?
not a public hearing, it's just gonna be an agenda item, so you just need to be able to post the
Week.
agenda with the 48 hours notice.
Right.
So that would be, we could put it under board business as an executive session to discuss
Do it as the last thing.
and do it as the last thing.
Put it as.
An item,
put
a
it
line
as an
item.
with
It
a-
has to be an item,
Yes,
but like with no time.
or you can put it after your last thing and it will just be like your other hearing items that.
And we could
it's
also
not
table it to the end of the
40,
meeting,
it's
like
not-
Oh,
we've done
yeah,
so
good
many
call.
times.
We
Yeah.
could table and then take,
Yes,
if someone
and
else
just keep
comes in,
going.
take them
Yes,
first.
if something else comes, we could do that.
Okay.
Well, there's a problem with that, because when I get something in, I would, if you're gonna take 6:40, and
So
I
we're-
get
so
something else in
You put it at
tomorrow,
6:45, and then
And
we
then
will,
we table that till the end of the meeting.
we would
We'll table
open
our
6:40,
executive till the-
table it till the end of the meeting, take the 6:50 or whatever it
Yes.
is, 6:45,
Yeah, so
whatever.
that's how,
It's
that's,
6:40?
yes, please.
Whenever I've seen the select board enter executive session, they usually just reconvene it's the last item on the agenda, and they reconvene to dismiss the meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we'll give it to 6:40, and we'll just keep pushing it back until the end of the meeting.
Could I get a motion for that, please?
I'll make a motion, is it an executive one?
Session.
I make a motion for an executive session for 224 Manchog Road for January 18th at 6:40 PM.
Second.
Robin made a motion for 224 Manchok Road for the executive session at 6:40 PM. Jamie seconded. Robin, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jamie, how do you vote?
Aye.
Tim, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I, Bill, vote aye. Okay, is there any other unexpected business, any other agenda items that need to be discussed?
Minutes from 12:21?
We tabled
Table
those.
them. Oh,
Gonna
do I
table
need to
that.
make a motion for that? I make a motion to table the minutes for 12/21/22. Did I already do that?
I thought you did that.
Yeah, I think
You
we
did
did.
We did do
Sorry.
that. I just didn't mark it off, and then he said it,
Yeah, I
and so
had
I
to
was
check,
like,
so I
maybe I
think we're
didn't.
good.
We're moving them to a different table.
Putting it on a table over there now.
And the most important part of the night?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Robin made a motion to adjourn. Jamie seconded. Robin, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jamie, how do you vote?
Aye.
Tim, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I, Bill, vote aye. Have a good night, everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Happy
Brandon.
New Year's, right. Hard to believe. 22 in the books.
23.
On case law, mass general laws, I mean, are they using the same standards for those appeals?
They are using the same standards because the presumption of affordable housing over outweighing everything else is in the statute. So they will look to the statute. However, I can tell you that I don't get knocked down as soon when I go to land court or superior court as I do with HAC.
Okay. So if we enter into an MOA,